You know that argument, right? The one about avocado toast or participation trophies or how things were back in my day. But what if those aren't just silly disagreements? In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the psychology of generations and show you why we're not just seeing the world differently, we're literally wired to.
I mean, it's a complaint as old as time itself, isn't it? Kids these days. Every older generation looks at the younger one and is just convinced they're lazy or entitled or just wrong. But what if it's not actually about a decline in values? What if there's something much, much deeper going on in our own heads? Well, that's the puzzle we're going to solve today.
Okay, so here is the main idea, the big takeaway. The time period you grow up in, it doesn't just give you a collection of memories, it actively programs your brain. It sets up the operating system for how you see everything. So it's not that we're just different people, it's that our brains are running on completely different software installed by the world we grew up in.
All right, to really see how this programming works, we have to rewind. Let's go back to the beginning of the modern era, to the analog world. This time forged two really distinct mindsets. You had the builders, who grew up when everything felt stable and under construction, and then you had the survivors, who learned how to get by when that stable world started to crack. So, let's start with the baby boomers, our builders. Their entire psychological blueprint was built on this one core belief right here. If I work hard, I'll earn safety. Now, this wasn't just some nice idea. For them, it was a fundamental law of the universe that they saw proven true all around them every single day.
And this is the world that programmed them. You have to remember, they grew up in a time when society was literally rebuilding itself. Stability wasn't just a nice to have, it was the ultimate prize. The institutions were reliable, career paths were pretty much a straight line, and if you followed the rules, you were rewarded. So their belief in company loyalty and routine, that's not them being old-fashioned. It's the totally logical result of growing up in a world where the systems actually worked.
But of course, the world doesn't stay the same. And for the next generation in line, Gen X, our survivors, the programming they got was radically different. The message the world sent them was pretty stark. No one's coming to save you.
And this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? Gen X were kind of the middle children of history. They literally watched the stable world their parents had so much faith in start to crumble right before their eyes. They saw their parents getting laid off, divorce rates were climbing, and the big institutions, well, they started to fail. So that famous Gen X independence and skepticism, that's not a personality trait, it's a survival strategy you learn. When you realize you can't trust the system, you have to trust yourself.
And that brings us to the biggest turning point of all, the arrival of the digital age. This created two completely new kinds of programming. First, we have the dreamers, who were promised one kind of world, but ended up with another. And then we have the hyper-aware, who grew up plugged into everything, all at once.
To really get what makes millennials tick, you have to understand this psychological idea, expectation trauma. Just think about it. It's the mental whiplash that happens when the world you were told to expect is suddenly and violently replaced by a much, much harsher reality.
See, millennials, our dreamers, they were raised on that classic boomer promise. Dream big, work hard, and success will follow. But they stepped right into adulthood just as the 2008 financial crisis completely demolished that promise. That collision created a generation that, for the first time, really started valuing meaning over money, but it also left them feeling like they were perpetually behind. They are this restless bridge, caught between the old world's promises and the new world's chaotic reality.
Now, if millennials dealt with expectation trauma, Gen Z is facing a totally different beast: digital burnout. And this is a unique kind of exhaustion, one that comes from never ever knowing a world that had an off switch.
This, right here, is the key to understanding Gen Z, our hyper-aware generation. They didn't just learn to use the internet, they literally grew up inside of it. Their brains are wired for incredible speed, constantly processing a fire hose of trends, notifications, and global crises. So when people call them sensitive, they're totally missing the point. They're not sensitive, they're overloaded. Their craving for peace and authenticity isn't a sign of weakness, it's a necessary defense mechanism against a world that never, ever shuts up.
This slide just puts it all into such sharp focus. You can see the fundamental difference right there. Millennials, the digital bridge, are still searching for meaning in all the chaos. But Gen Z, the digital natives, they're trying to find some peace and a little bit of control inside of it. It's the difference between asking, "Is this all enough?" versus asking, "How can I control this?" Two totally different questions. So, Where is all this heading? Well, we have to look forward to the next chapter, to the generation that's going to be shaped not just by the internet, but by artificial intelligence.
So we're just starting to meet Generation Alpha. They're growing up in a world where AI isn't some sci-fi concept, it's just a given. A world where everything can be customized just for them. Now, they're going to have access to more information than any humans in history. But their central psychological challenge, it might be the most profound one yet. Just learning how to feel real and authentic in a world that is becoming more and more digital and more simulated.
Okay, let's bring this all home. After looking at each of these unique environments, one after the other, the conclusion becomes incredibly clear. The friction we feel between generations, it's not really about the people. It's about their programming.
If you remember one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. Every single generational worldview is simply a logical adaptation to the environment that generation had to grow up in. You aren't born a boomer or a Gen Z, you are wired to become one by the world that you have to navigate. And this slide just perfectly maps out the whole story. You've got boomers, who built systems in a stable world. Then Gen X, who had to adapt when those very systems started to break. Millennials came next, searching for a new kind of meaning in all the chaos. Then Gen Z, who started to question this overwhelming digital world they were handed. And Generation Alpha, well, they're going to be the ones to redefine what this all even means. So the next time you find yourself in one of those generational arguments, just remember this. It was never about who's right or who's wrong, who's better or who's worse. It's always been about understanding the different worlds that shaped us. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. What world is shaping you right now?